When it comes to strategy, everyone has an opinion, especially about your strategy. All you need to do is... Now that's a cue that you should tune out completely. And tune into, well actually what should you tune into? That's what I want to answer today in this week's show. Tune into your buyer. That's who we should tune into. I want to share with you a bit of detail around that today, but also share some examples about contemporary companies that have made their strategy really buyer-centric. We need to ignore all of that helpful advice until we're 100% clear on what the buyer needs. You've seen one of these before. It's a market maturity model. You've got early adopters, early majority, late majority laggards. We know this model. In fact, you may even have seen this other model here from Geoffrey Moore in Crossing the Chasm and Inside the Tornado. But they're both largely talking about the adoption life cycle. In the beginning there's a few, in the end there's a few, and in the middle there's lots. We know that, but what do we do about it? Recognise that what they, the buyers, need changes over time. In the beginning, they want some kind of advantage in return for taking a risk. So why don't the next group buy at the same time? What's missing that holds them back? They need a little bit of proof. So for the second group, you need to give them proof. What about the next group? Once the market's kind of really growing, what are they waiting for? They're only willing to buy when they see widespread adoption. They're not super late to the party, but they don't want to be the first ones to turn up either. So what do they need? And once the market's really matured, once it's peaked, what do they need? Do you think they still really need to be told how to buy? Or maybe if they're on the third or fourth round, they might be telling you how they want to buy. What the buyer needs, or the group of buyers need, along the way changes. And therefore our strategy has to change. And here's the fundamental point. Therefore, if what they need changes, what we need to do changes, and therefore a great idea for one stage in the market might be a particularly silly idea for the next. So we need to know, where's the buyer? The very early buyer with the big risk appetite doesn't really care whether you've served anybody else like them. In fact, they'd probably prefer that you weren't serving somebody like them. They wanted to be the first ones in. It's that next group who need confidence, and they get confidence from seeing others just like them buying. And that's the time when industry segmentation makes a whole lot of sense. Once the market's really growing, industry segmentation doesn't really matter again. And so that middle group, not the first ones who have the high risk appetite, but the next ones who are waiting to see a bit of proof, that's when industry segmentation or clustering your buyers makes a lot of sense. And that's why Uber goes city by city. And that's why Stripe, the payment gateway provider, are focusing on developers, not end user companies at this stage. Once the market really maxes out, then it doesn't really matter so much whether you've got enough proof for them. They know that it's a good idea to buy from you or from somebody else, and so industry segmentation has kind of served its purpose at this point. Penetration pricing is really throwing money away. If the market's brand new, well, firstly, there's no competition for you to be compared with, but secondly, the buyer doesn't really care about what it costs you to make it. What they care about is what value are you going to deliver to them. Later, when the market matures, price and cost might come closer together. In other words, margins get squeezed. But in the early days, you're going for value pricing, not penetration pricing. And that's why Tesla is not in the car business and not in the battery business. They're in the sustainable energy business where the margins are great. Resellers are really only for high growth markets. Manufacturers love selling through third parties, resellers, but until maybe a quarter of the market has already bought, two things aren't in place that you need in place for resellers to really work. Firstly, there's not enough market yet for the resellers to be attracted to it. So you probably won't get good resellers anyway. And secondly, the buyer lacks confidence, and so they want to deal directly with the end user. But once the market has reached its high growth phase, it's maybe a quarter of the market's already bought and it's growing really quickly, then you can sell through resellers. And that's why Apple sells through both telcos and retailers right now. Bundling, another one of those great ideas that people will tell you to do, really only works at a certain stage in the market. In the very early phase of the market, you don't know what to bundle yet. You actually don't know what a complete solution is going to look like yet. You and the market are yet to work that out. And they want to wrap a lot of service around it anyway. They want you to be quite flexible. In the more mature market, they want to start unbundling or cherry picking. It's great that you're offering me that, but can I have that and that please? That's the way the mature buyer wants to buy. In the middle, it makes all sorts of sense. When the market's a little bit nervous, they want to see it as complete as it can be. So in the very early stage or the very late stage, bundling does not work. It's just in that middle high growth period when it makes all sorts of sense. And that's why now the telephone operators let you bring your own device, because they recognize that as mature buyers, we start to dictate what the terms will be and what we want and from whom. Think about the buyer, not your product, when you set your strategy. Ignore helpful advice until you're 100% clear on what the buyers need. Recognize that what they need changes. Industry segmentation is most useful before adoption is widespread. Penetration pricing is throwing money away most of the time. Resellers are only for high growth markets, and bundling really works, but not in very early or very late markets. Strategy still needs to be executed. All of those big strategy questions, the market, the product, the channel, even the competition, all should be informed by what problem you're solving and how mature the market is in regards to that problem. But you need sales, marketing, finance and ops to all agree what that strategy should be. And then you need to execute it, and that's why you need tactics. What are you actually going to do to find buyers, close them, and every step in between? Resolving both the strategy and the tactical questions is the job of Funnel Plan. It's a tool to help you answer those questions all the way through to tactics and then communicate them. Now, if you have a funnel plan already, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't, go get one now. Go to funnelplan.com and get yourself a funnel plan. I hope you got lots of value out of this week's show. I had fun putting it together for you. I've got lots more lined up for next week. And until then, may your funnel be full and always flowing. Our thanks this week to you for watching this week's show. Jane Tyquin for blog production, John Ang for video production. My name's Hugh McFarlane, and it's been my absolute pleasure to have scripted and presented this week's show.